Part 2, Setting Boundaries. Developing healthy boundaries. In this part of the lesson, we embark on a journey to develop healthy boundaries that empower not only ourselves, but also those around us. Healthy boundaries are the key to maintaining balance and fostering positive relationships. The significance of personal boundaries. Personal boundaries are the invisible lines we draw to protect our well-being. They define our limits and set the stage for healthy, respectful interactions with others. Understanding their significance is pivotal in maintaining our mental and emotional health. Practices for setting boundaries. The first principle would be to identify your limits. Because by recognizing your own limits and understanding what makes you uncomfortable, this self-awareness is the foundation for setting boundaries effectively. So for example, if you know you feel uncomfortable when you have a male, let's say, that you're not familiar with, or you don't know, or you don't feel comfortable with, speak to you very closely and maybe put his hands around your waist, and you don't feel comfortable with that. Well, instead of remaining quiet because you don't want to create a scene or say anything to make anyone uncomfortable, it is not okay to allow yourself to continue to be uncomfortable and feel uncomfortable if that is your internal limit. So you have to respect your own boundaries by knowing that in order for them to be respected and maintained, you do have to speak up and communicate them with others, especially if they are the ones that are actually making you feel uncomfortable. It doesn't mean you have to make a scene. It doesn't mean you have to make anyone feel uncomfortable. You can slightly or simply say, that's the life of what you said, but I do want to bring into your awareness that when you speak to me a little close and you put your hands on me, it actually makes me feel slightly uncomfortable, and I would really, really appreciate it if you keep your space with me, if that's okay with you. It can be very subtle, it can be very gentle, it doesn't even have to be aggressive. By you stating what you need to say in the most clear way possible, with a stern tone of voice, but also kind pitch, your point should be getting across, and you should not have to repeat yourself again. Now, obviously, not everyone is the same, and that might not always work if you have a form of a predator in this interaction. And in that case, you do what you need to do to escalate the situation or completely remove yourself from the situation so that it doesn't continue to occur. Because you're the one that has to set the tone for what you will allow and what you will not allow. And people will only do what you allow them to do. So once you're setting the proper tone and you identify what is the limit to that discomfort or comfort in your case, depending on your values and your circumstances and how you feel, everyone is going to be different. But if in that example, that's how you feel, it is your full responsibility to voice that opinion, to voice that condition, and to set those boundaries for yourself. Because only you know how uncomfortable you feel. Therefore, you can only state and give that clarity to the individual that you are currently setting those boundaries with. Which brings us into the next one, communicate clearly. Just like the example I just expressed to you, we have to learn to express our boundaries in a clear and assertive manner. Effective communication ensures that our limits are respected because you are setting the tone for what experience you are having, for your space, for your tolerance, and what you will enable and what you will not enable based on the boundaries that you want to set. And once you know what those boundaries are, you want to make sure that you yourself keep your word so that you know that you could trust yourself to maintain yourself safe and secure in your being. Which brings us into the next one. Practice self-care. Boundaries also includes taking care of yourself. Prioritize self-care to ensure that you have the energy and the emotional resources to maintain your boundaries. Because in this case, I'm sure we've all been there at one point in our life, whether we were young as children or adults and whatever, where we didn't speak up when we had to, where we felt uncomfortable and we didn't say anything. And that feeling of feeling icky or disappointed in ourselves for not standing up for ourselves, for not saying what we felt, then sometimes we tend to hold grudges or resentment for even ourselves for not doing so, which over time, if we continue to do that, we birth energies within ourselves, shadow aspect within ourselves, that we may not be able to later on know why they're there or even be able to control, because we are setting the tone for the negative to happen rather than allowing the positive to occur in that present moment. And every time you stand up for yourself and you say what you need to say, you will feel a sense of relief and confidence in yourself. And another way of building confidence and self-esteem is being able to actually set boundaries and speak up for ourselves when we need to speak up, and say when we don't feel comfortable with a situation, and speak what that is. And boundaries also gives us the opportunity to set the tone by giving warnings. Hey, I don't like when you do this, and I would really appreciate if you don't. That's your first verbal. On the next one, if you have to repeat yourself, then there's more of a bigger consequence to that. Hey, I spoke to you about this prior, but I don't like to have to repeat myself about things. And I'm not saying that you are doing it intentionally, right? You empathize with the individual to create and remove any conflict or hostility that may occur if they get offended. But if they do get offended, that is a they problem. Your responsibility is to maintain your boundaries and be okay to shake the waters if you have to maintain them, right? Because in that case, if you say, hey, I mentioned this prior, but I see that we were not following through here, do I have to completely remove myself from your presence because you can't seem to contain yourself? Or is this a HR issue at this point? You know, things like that, whether it's a job or in any environment, family members, it could be anyone. Sometimes people push the buttons to see how far they can go. And you have to be ready for that. Because if they feel that they can push it to a certain degree, they're going to keep pushing it to see how far they can go. So as soon as you get that uncomfortable feeling, that's when you have to say, okay, stop right there. I need to make sure that I maintain my boundaries and maintain the practice of my self-care so that I can feel fulfilled with myself, so that I can feel satisfied with my experiences, so that I have the emotional and energetic sense of myself to maintain and still have for other things to worry about, and not this conflict or situation at this present moment. Bringing us to the next one, learn to say no. It's okay to say no when something doesn't align with your boundaries. This simple word is a powerful tool for preserving your well-being. So understand that no is a full sentence. You don't even have to explain why you're saying no. And if they ask, simply say if you want to be polite, but you can just say, because I said no. Or if you want to be polite, you can say, unfortunately, that doesn't align with what I have going on, so I'm going to have to decline that. That's it. You don't have to overextend yourself. You don't have to over-explain yourself. It's a no. It's okay to be a no. You don't have to feel guilty. And realize that if you are a person that does feel guilty when they say no because they can't say yes for whatever your reason is based on your own boundaries, you have to soothe yourself and talk to yourself and tell yourself that you are doing this for yourself and to maintain your well-being energetically and emotionally, mentally, physically, whatever the reason may be for you. This is something that needs to be done at this time. So don't feel guilty for protecting yourself, for taking care of yourself, for making sure that you set the proper boundaries for yourself based on your needs, your priorities, and your values. Bringing us to the next and last one, which is respect others' boundaries. Just as you expect others to respect your boundaries, make a conscious effort to respect theirs. It's a two-way street in maintaining healthy relationships. For me, I believe that it's always a plus to maintain an observation on people's reactions and unsaid words when they feel uncomfortable, or you can tell by their body language and so on that they might feel uncomfortable or didn't like a comment that was said. And sometimes people can not say how they really feel, but it does bring comfort in knowing that they are being heard even when they're not saying anything. Or to even ask, hey, did you get bothered by that comment I said? I didn't mean to offend you if so. Sometimes even asking a simple question just to bring that clarity, if you do observe something, brings a form of understanding, right, within all relationships. So that's always a plus to have. Empowerment and respect. When we develop healthy boundaries, we empower ourselves to take control of our well-being. But it is not just about self-preservation. It's also about respecting the boundaries of others, which fosters mutual respect and understanding. Now, when we think about empowerment and respect, it is not to say that you need empowerment because you're weak and because you're hopeless. Sometimes we need to embody our own internal power so that we can indeed, in confidence and assertiveness, stand up for what it is that we need, what is it that we want, and what is it that we stand for, whether together or single-handedly, right? Empowerment is not to say that it is something that you need to seek, but rather something that you need to embody, so that when you do need to speak up, you do need to stop something that is unjust for yourself or others. When you have to speak your mind, when you witness the injustice even on a massive scale, there's an embodiment that needs to occur in order for you to step into your power through the courage that you build through the embodiment of your power. So empowerment is indeed something that whether you are a woman or a man or a child, you can find within yourself so that you can set the tone for what is it that you need to communicate and assert for yourself and others to earn yourself that respect. Because respect can only be given to a person that respects themselves enough to set those boundaries for themselves. You see, it all starts with the self. So if you are not embodied in your own internal power, then it becomes a lot harder for people that may be disrespectful to most to see the value in respecting you in the first place. Because a person that doesn't see your value is also responding to, if you see your own value, to actually embody the power within yourself to stand up for yourself. So if you don't do that for yourself, do not expect those outside of you to do it for you as firmly as you need it to be done, if it's not starting from your own internal foundation. Balanced and respectful interaction. Healthy boundaries create a safe and balanced space for interactions. They protect you from emotional harm and enable you to engage with others in a respectful and harmonious way. So once we build that solid foundation of our own embodied power to set the tone with our boundaries and be assertive in our own authority of self, we ourselves start to respect ourselves. Therefore, the respect that we have within ourselves is going to be the energy that we are emitting externally. Therefore, our experiences are going to align with that belief once it is completely solidified. But before it completely gets solidified, you might get triggered, you might get tested until you say, no, enough is enough. I'm going to stand on the business of this. I'm going to remain solid in my decision because I have experienced the choices of doing and not doing that. And I would prefer the doing of it so that I secure the way I would prefer to be and experience my experience of life. Right? It is all connected, but it starts with the foundation of that embodiment of your own internal power, so that when you do interact and have experiences and relationships, that solidification of those boundaries will be felt, will be known. You won't even have to say, because you will respect yourself and carry yourself with that respect enough that people might test you and see how far they can go and how solid that wall is of those boundaries. Of course, that's always going to happen, so you can expect that. But once you remain solid, it's going to be validated that those boundaries will remain. But you need to be secure in doing that, because it is your responsibility to set the tone of those boundaries for yourself. Bringing us into the benefits of setting boundaries, with the first one being exactly what I just discussed, self-respect. As healthy boundaries demonstrates that you value and respect yourself. This self-respect positively influences self-esteem and self-worth. Bringing us to the next one, preservation of energy. They protect your emotional and mental energy, allowing you to use it for what truly matters to you. So sometimes we don't think much of it because we're not taught about this, which is why I'm doing it. But two, we don't give ourselves enough time to ourselves to know how different life truly can be when we learn to preserve our energy and harness it for the things that we would prefer to use it for. Because if you have experiences that have allowed you the contrast of what it is to do the same thing every day, where you're constantly doing for others, you're constantly depleting yourself, and you're not giving you enough time to have a moment for yourself so that you can recharge, so that you can take care of what you need to take care of for yourself, so that you can relax, so that you can meditate, so that you can journal, so that you can be creative. All of these things are what fills you up. But if you're constantly depleting yourself, then you are going to be coming from an empty place from yourself. And it's much harder to want to genuinely help people when you are almost empty yourself. Because if you don't have within yourself, what are you giving out of? If you don't love yourself, what are you really loving with? If you don't respect yourself, how can you respect others if you obviously don't understand and know the value of respect? And all of this correlates into the grand scheme of things. Because when we learn to preserve our energy and only allow our energy to be depleted with the things that we actually enjoy and the people we would prefer to hang out with and the things that we would rather do, then we won't have to continue people pleasing and being codependent on comfort and the assumption of what they would say if I don't go to this event, even though I know I don't feel like going. If we stop caring about what other people think and start realizing, what is it that I am feeling? What is it that I need at this moment in time? What is it that I would prefer? Then when you do decide that you do have enough of yourself to give and to share, you're coming from a full place. You're coming from a genuine place. Because you're doing because you really want to do it, not because you feel that you have to. Have you ever experienced a person that's doing it because they truly want to do something for you, as opposed to a person that feels like they have to do it for you? If you are in tune, you notice the difference of those two energies. It is very obvious, because the dialogue that is occurring within these individuals that are doing because they feel forced to, or they feel that they have to, or they fear what others will say if they don't do it, is not really coming from a genuine, heartfelt place, as opposed to a person that, you know what, I know you didn't ask me, but I feel that I can help you right now because I'm in the position to do so, and it would make me feel better to do so. I really would like to do that for you. It feels so different. And this is why, if you're doing that for yourself, it's easy for you to do it for others, because that's the energy that you give in yourself. So it's easy for you to spread it. But of course, if you're depleting yourself to help another, it's going to feel like another form of depletion, because you're not filling up your own tank. So how are you going to feel better about having to do something you don't want to do, or help somebody do anything, if you're not filling yourself up? You see, this is why everything starts with you. You go within yourself. You understand yourself. You know which is it that you want and you need, and do what's best for you first. Because once you get the hang of that, then everything outside of you to do and to have and to be in places comes naturally, because now you just want to share the abundance of all that you feel within you. You don't feel like you have to do it. You just feel that you want to do it. Bringing us into the next one, stress reduction. Because setting and maintaining boundaries reduces stress by ensuring that you don't take on more than you can handle. Because it can actually be very stressful when you believe that you have to do things that you don't want to do. So before you're even doing it, you're coming in with the energy of, I don't want to do it. So the way you're doing it is creating stress within yourself. You're creating unnecessary emotional states within yourself, because you would prefer to do it not wanting to do it than set the boundaries of, let's say, saying, hey, if I have the chance, I would love to do it, but there might be a slight possibility that I might not be able to be available that day. Just letting you know ahead of time. But if I do have the time and my schedule is open on that day, I would love to do that for you. That's giving a 50% chance of what you can do based on what's going on with you. You're not letting anyone down. You're making sure that you are reliable if you are available to be reliable in your schedule. But you're not overextending yourself to be reliable, which then means you're not being reliable for yourself to maintain the boundary, to make sure that you're caring and loving yourself properly, right? And we have to be self-reliant of ourselves first, so that we receive and emit that energy externally, right? Because being reliable feels good. When you know that people can depend and rely on you for things, and it makes you feel good because you're able to come to someone's need, especially if you love and care for these people, right? It's a fulfilling. So it's not something that you actually dislike doing it, but you know yourself enough to know that if I do it under the conditions that I'm taking myself off the course and out of the alignment that I want to be, I might not be as happy as I would rather be doing that. So that's why setting boundaries is so important. Bringing us into the next benefit, which is clarity and communication. Boundaries enhances communication by making your limits clear. This clarity reduces misunderstanding and conflict. Now, when you give boundaries, let's say you speak ahead of time, you give what might be expected ahead of time. So there's no surprises, there's no misunderstanding, there's no conflict, there's no assumptions, right? Because I believe it's worse to say, yeah, I'll be there, and then not show up. And then you can't show up because maybe you've been depressed for, let's say, 2 days, or you've been overwhelmed and overworked. So you have the day off. So instead of doing another task, you would rather stay home and recoup and rejuvenate yourself mentally and spiritually and physically, right? That's what you need for yourself. So let's say you fell asleep on the couch and you woke up late and you couldn't make it. And all of a sudden there's these, they said they were going to come and they didn't show up, right? Because you say, yeah, I'll show up. Because the effort and the intention is good because you do want to be there, but things happen in life. But at least when you get the boundaries and you give the heads up of the possibilities of, there is a possibility that I can't make it because I actually been exhausted. So I'm going to maybe take the day to do a few things and see how I feel after that. And I'll let you know when we're closer to the day. That's setting clear boundaries. And no one's disappointed, no one's upset, because if they truly love and understand you, it's an understanding situation. There's no curtains, there's no assumption, because you're being clear and communicating what is it that you need, and there is a firm understanding, right? Bringing us into the next one, protection from exploitation. Boundaries shields you from being taken advantage of or manipulated by others. So if you have people that, for example, may have a problem with you not showing up, or may make you feel guilty, or attempt to manipulate you to do what you already agreed not to do or said no to, then they are already showing you that they do not respect you enough to respect your boundaries. They have gotten used to you allowing them to push you around or overextend themselves in your space, in your energy, and deplete you of your resources and source of energy. And when you can't remain solid in those boundaries and set the tone and say no to that, then that is your responsibility. Then it is only at that point your fault for allowing it to continue. Because at this point, once we start getting that empowerment going on and we start building that confidence and self-esteem within ourselves, and we start believing in our potential and who we are, and we start to align with this concept of self-mastery, so that when we want to stick to something, we stick to it and remain solid in that decision. All of those people that were there only to use and abuse and exploit you and manipulate you will not want to even deal with all of that. So they themselves might remove themselves. And if they don't, because they're pushing your buttons and they keep pushing, it is also your responsibility to completely remove yourself from that equation. Because setting boundaries is also knowing when to remove yourself from situations that no longer serve you, because they don't want to respect the boundaries that you're setting. So they are showing you by action and by their behavior and by their tone and by the things that they're saying that they are no longer in alignment with where you want to be and where you want to go. So at that point, it is your responsibility to make the decision to remove yourself from that equation. And this is also a disclaimer that as you start healing and you start setting the boundaries for yourself and you start loving yourself and you start doing the internal work where you no longer align with these people that are only using you and abusing you and exploiting you, there's going to be a lot of people in your life changing. There's going to be a lot of environments that are going to change. A lot of change is going to occur because of any form of transformation. You know that's what's going to happen. When you go to the gym to lose weight, you have to already know that even though you love those jeans that you've been wearing since you were in college, when you lose the weight and you get healthy and you get toned, because let's say you went vegan and now your weight is dropping off fast, you have to understand that you can no longer wear those pants because they no longer fit the new body that you are creating within yourself, because you chose to love yourself, to maintain your body healthy. So you're doing all the work of eating right and you're going to the gym. Now, by not setting the boundaries and not being okay of letting go of those individuals and situations and jobs and relationships and so on, it's like you saying, even though I lost all this weight, I love those jeans so much that I'm going to forcefully put them on still and go outside looking silly because I can't let go of my favorite jeans. That they are only my favorite because they went with every outfit that I was used to wearing years ago, which are now completely out of fashion. But they're only my favorite because I have gained comfort with them. I got used to the jeans. They were always my go-to jeans, right? But when you look in the mirror, you obviously see that they do not fit you. They're not even appealing to look at when they're on you because they're so baggy, right? And you have done so much work on yourself. Would you really allow yourself to wear jeans and not show what you have worked so hard to build? No, you wouldn't do that with jeans. So don't do it with people. Don't do it with places. Don't do it with jobs. Don't do it with anything that is not in alignment with your newfound boundaries that are placed there based on your values and your priorities and the setting of the tone that allows you to be fully in alignment with your self-love for self. Bringing us into conclusion, as we conclude part 2 of setting boundaries in our journey of cultivating personal power, that you're taking a significant step towards self-mastery, as healthy boundaries are your shield and your sword, protecting your well-being and fostering respectful relationships. Remember, setting boundaries isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength and self-respect. So creating the space for your balance and harmonious interactions is actually the beginning stages of who you are pursuing to become.